The 1934 novel by Agatha Christie, called Murder on the Orient Express, was turned into a 1974 film that was directed by Sidney Lumet. It's the story about a Belgian detective named Poirot, played by Albert Finney, as he's asked to investigate a murder that happened on the Orient Express of an American business tycoon. The movie is packed with an all-star cast, including Lauren Bacall, Ingrid Bergman, Sean Connery, John Gielgud, Vanessa Redgrave, Michael York, Jacqueline Bisset, Anthony Perkins, and Wendy Hiller. The director had a mountain of technical problems that he had to deal with the film. More than a dozen characters have to be introduced and kept alive, and the complicated plot has to be unraveled, while all of this must take place in the claustrophobic confines of the railway car. Lumet does a masterful job of orchestrating this film, and you're never confused for a moment, except where you're supposed to be, and that is most of the time. The 84-year-old Agatha Christie attended the movie's premiere in November of 1974. It was the only movie adaptation in her lifetime which she was completely satisfied. This premiere was her final public appearance, as she died 14 months later on January 12, 1976. Christie's original story was inspired by the notorious kidnapping and subsequent murder of famous aviator Charles Lindbergh and Anne Morrow's baby, Charles Lindbergh Jr. Charles Lindbergh died himself 3 months before the movie was released. During promotion and publicity junkets that the actors did for the movie, many of the stars freely admitted that their chief reason for appearing in this movie was the chance to meet and work with the other cast members. Lauren Bacall states that her lure to do the film was the ability to act with Albie Finney, something that she had always wanted to do. Finney, who was 37 at the time of the filming, was the third choice for this role because the character of Poirot was supposed to be much older than he was. The role was offered to Alec Guinness, and he was unavailable, as so was Paul Scofield. Special makeup was created to give Finney the appearance of the 55 to 60-year-old Belgian detective. The actual Orient Express trains were no longer in existence at the time of shooting the film. However, the real Orient Express engines were used in the movie, but the problem was they couldn't travel very far. There were only portions of the carriages that still existed, and they were in museums, mostly in Belgium. These were meticulously recreated for the shoot. The Orient Express was the first long-distance train to operate in Europe with sleeping and dining cars. It began service in 1883. It ran 3 trains per week in each direction between Paris, France, and Istanbul, Turkey. The trips were over 4 days and 3 nights. Interior filming was done at Elstree Studios. Exterior shooting was mostly done in France in 1973, with a railroad workshop near Paris standing in for the Istanbul station. The scenes of the train proceeding through Central Europe were filmed in the Jura Mountains. There were some major concerns about the lack of snow in the weeks preceding the scheduled shooting of the snowbound train. Plans had been made to truck in large quantities of snow at considerable expense to the production company. But the night before shooting began, heavy snowfall came, and trucking in the snow became unnecessary, which is just as well, because these snow-laden backup trucks had themselves become stuck in the snow. When Paramount Pictures acquired the U.S. distribution rights to the movie, it was necessary to create new main and end titles in the film, because the British prints of the movie had 3 complete mistakes in their credits. In the main titles, Colin Blakely's name was misspelled as Colin Blanky. In the end titles, Wendy Hiller's name was misspelled as Wendy Miller, and Albert Finney's name was omitted entirely. In reconstructing the revised credits, Paramount Pictures meticulously matched the existing font of the main title sequence, while creating an entirely new font for the end titles, where they Americanized the British spelling of words such as jewelry and color. You can still see these misspelled credits when you watch a British released version that was done on DVD or Blu-ray. This movie may hold the record for the largest number of major acting awards in its cast. Of the 15 leading actors and actresses, 13 received major awards and/or nominations for movie and stage. Altogether, they won 45 major awards in their careers and had more than 100 more nominations. The youngest of the 20 cast members was Jacqueline Bisset, who was 30 years old at the time of the movie's release. The oldest cast member was George Coloris. He played Dr. Constantine, and he was 71 years old at the time of shooting. The luxury food that they show being inspected and carried aboard the train early in the movie had been stolen from the set just prior to the shooting of these scenes. All of the food had to be bought again in the middle of the night on location in Paris, France. With so many suspects in the plot, director Sidney Lumet decided that the audience's odds of keeping the characters straight would improve if he cast a familiar face in each role. He thought that the best way to acquire an all-star cast was to sign the biggest star first. In 1974, that was Sean Connery, who the director had previously directed. Once Connery was attached to the film, the remainder of the cast was set in place in a matter of weeks. Now, as I said earlier, Albert Finney required many hours of makeup to make him look the age that he did, and this was required to be done every day before shooting. At this same time of filming, he was performing in a stage play, so time was of the essence for Mr. Finney. He had very little time to catch up on sleep. The studio developed a daily routine that they followed during the filming, wherein they would send an ambulance to pick up the sleeping actor at his house. He would be in his pajamas, and they would carefully try not to wake him. During the half-hour commute to the studio, the makeup artist would ride along and begin to work on his face. The rest of the fine detail work was completed at the studio, where most times Finney was still sleeping. The thought of sleeping through somebody putting makeup on you seems almost absurd, but I think he probably just got used to it and was able to pull it off. In the final scene, in which Poirot relates his solution to the crime, they had to shoot this shot countless times, as it required numerous angles that couldn't be captured in a single take, and more cameras than could fit on the confines of a dining car set. These multiple takes were especially challenging for Albert Finney, whose uninterrupted dialogue was 8 pages long. And many of the other cast members remember the tedious nature of this filming because they had to maintain their physical posturing for continuity of the shots. In this very long scene, he asks everyone to be silent, please, while he explains the various theories of the case. He does all this in great detail. I find it really fun to watch these dozen high-priced stars keep their mouths shut and just listen while Finney masterfully dominates the scene. Take a look back at this definite classic from 1974. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.